discussing the fallout from my Contrapoints video. Hey everybody, it's Prince of Queens, and first things first, I want to remind people that tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time will be the Gaytriarchy live stream, and Dana Martin, who we were supposed to have 2 weeks ago, who's a radical unschooler, she will be joining us, and so yeah, I hope to see you there. Now, as for this video, I published my video, Contrapoints is Anita Sarkeesian 2.0, last week, and although a lot of people have really liked it a lot and have gotten over 100 subscribers from it, which is quite a lot actually at this point for a channel that it's basically sandboxed everywhere on social media. My Twitter has been shadow banned consistently, and my YouTube account is beyond shadow banned. It's actually kind of a big deal to get over 100 subscribers from a video. So I know that people do like this video, and some of my friends have said it's one of my best videos ever, and I know a lot of people who weren't familiar with me have shared the video and said that it's good. However, although I totally knew that this type of thing was going to happen and even described this literal exact type of thing within my video, it almost became self-fulfilling prophecies because, one, it does seem to be the case that YouTube itself is doing something weird to this video, which I will explain in a second, and two, yes, the Contrapoints trolls are all over this video. They have massively downvoted it. It got over 900 downvotes in 24 hours, which is, that doesn't just happen. I mean, yeah, I know that there is a possibility that things can be posted on some popular leftist board where they all happen to go and just decide that they didn't like the video, or it could be a little bit more like, uh-oh, somebody attacked the queen, let's dogpile them and ratio the like to dislike ratio so that hopefully less people watch his video. Because honestly, I feel that if you do actually watch the video, the information, the factual information, both about Contrapoints as overlaid to the information about Anita Sarkeesian, as well as a lot of the notions that I have brought up in terms of the illogic and the corporate favoritism, they're pretty undeniable. I don't think that these are mere opinions of my own. But of course, according to the Contrapoints trolls, I'm crazy. Oh my god, why would anybody think that such a horrible video would get views? Maybe everybody just hates your horrible video. And no, you don't get treated poorly in the algorithms. That's absurd. That happens to leftists too. And it's so absurd that they think that they're fooling anybody. Now, granted, I don't think that they think that they are fooling me. I don't think that's the point. I think that what they're attempting to probably do is to plant plausible deniability in the minds of neutral third parties that were to look at the comment section and the like to dislike ratio and think to themselves, well, I don't know, maybe he got a bunch of details wrong in the video, or maybe he's just making stuff up that is absolutely unfounded. And maybe they have every right to think that because they don't know about such things as the way that YouTube definitely does shaft centrist, conservative, libertarian type channels. It's undeniable if you've been following it for a few years, especially if you're a YouTuber yourself, but a lot of people just don't know that stuff. Nor do people realize that there are literally people who are paid to be trolls that go around trolling the internet for all sorts of reasons. I don't think that the people who actually will accept money to troll the internet are anything more than mercenaries. I think that they will probably do anything for money, because I have some examples of accounts that will illustrate this in a second. And I'm going to read a few of the things that they've said and then show you their account that will essentially prove that they are trolls, unless you are somebody who is going to deny pretty obvious reality and saying, oh, you don't have any evidence, as if they're gonna tell me, yes, I am a troll, this is a sock puppet account, I actually have numerous ones, like they would need that to admit that I had quote unquote evidence. That is how purposefully obtuse they will continue to act. So first things first, I have a pinned comment on my Contrapoints video. However, now you can take a look at it, and just go to the video yourself or read a little bit of it here. It's a disclaimer. And the first thing is that I warn that there has been a mass downvoting campaign of sorts. Now, again, just for something to be loosely coordinated, like if it was shared on a few leftist boards, or maybe shared by one person on every leftist board that they know of, that is still a coordinated downvoting campaign to a certain degree. Now, I'm not saying that it was like, oh, I'm going to pay you $5 if you downvote it or something. No, but if people are actively trying to get this to happen, it is coordinated to at least a small but certain degree. And the other thing that I say is that I am not interested in debating with the Contrapoints trolls, because it's very clear what they do. They try to draw you in, pretending to actually be uncertain about a certain point that you did actually make clear. Like you were perfectly clear in your video, but they find a really, really nitpicky way of pretending that they aren't clear about this, hoping that you'll engage, but it's literally impossible. It's like talking to, or it would be like boxing with a mirror. You can't win. They will never concede logic. I can maybe show an example of that later. But the really weird thing is, and so one of the things in my video, one of the big points is that Contrapoints seems to be given preferential treatment by the corporations, both corporate media such as The New Yorker, The Verge, even like The Economist and some other ones. Contrapoints has been featured in all of this corporate media. Oh yeah, Vice. And that doesn't really happen to YouTubers, including leftist YouTubers. The only people that type of treatment has ever really happened to, that I know, is Anita Sarkeesian and Kat Black. And Kat Black did have teacher's pet status with YouTube. She would brag about having meetings with the YouTube board, and that ended up no longer being the case. I think actually maybe due to me repeatedly calling out her doxing, and even in a video that went somewhat viral that some people compiled of statements to deliver to YouTube CEO Suzhin Wojcicki, where I mentioned that Kat Black totally doxes people frequently. And then right after that, Kat Black made this video about how she hates YouTube and quit for like 5 or 6 months. So I know for a fact that Kat Black used to have a bit of a teacher's pet status, and it's very clear that Anita Sarkeesian did too. But Anita Sarkeesian had even more mainstream corporate legacy media appearances and write-ups and everything. And now it appears to be the same thing with Contrapoints. And people are saying in my comments, oh, well, maybe that doesn't mean anything. You're a conspiracy theorist. And it's like, okay, yeah. I'm totally am using such a wild imagination to sort of state an obvious observable reality and thinking about how things might be this way. Like, I'm supposed to just assume that all of these long lists of coincidences happened for no reason. Why would anybody assume that? It's absurd. But that is what they're going to say. And so I said I'm not going to be debating with the Contrapoints trolls because it's impossible. And YouTube, not I, has repeatedly unpinned that comment. It's happened about 3 times that I've had to repin my comment. And if you go through the comment thread below it, one of my subscribers ended up telling me, he's like, hey, this comment is no longer pinned. And so I pinned it again. And then he says, hey, it's no longer pinned again. So you can see how this was happening. And I ended up looking on my own just this morning. And yes, sure enough, it was unpinned. So I repinned it. Now that's very strange. YouTube is actively doing that because that has never happened to me. You know, when people get automatically unsubscribed from your channel, you can think, now I don't think that this is the case, this is not my belief, but there is a definite possibility that YouTube has started doing this to basically every channel, and it has to do with the fact that if you don't watch a person's videos for 3 months straight or something like that, then it will automatically unsubscribe them from your channel because they're considered an inactive user, which is stupid. Nobody would want that. Like, that doesn't benefit channels. It doesn't benefit subscribers. There's no reason for YouTube to be doing that at all, but that, I think, is what they have stated as their public statement about why people are getting unsubscribed from certain channels. I don't personally really buy it, but I can't prove that's not the case. Regardless, I have never heard of YouTube repeatedly unpinning a comment. When you pin a comment that you would like to be at the top, either that you make yourself or one that somebody else wrote that you thought was particularly interesting for some reason or another. I've never heard of YouTube going in and saying, no, you can't pin that. No, you can't pin that repeatedly. As far as I know, it's only ever happened on this video. And maybe they do it on other videos, but I've never heard of anybody talking about it. So that seems rather fishy by itself, especially with all of the evidence that I have that Contrapoints is somehow being favored by the YouTube gods and the corporate media gods. You know what I mean? So now I want to look at some of the comments that are mainly the ones that are responses to that particular comment, because there's a lot of them, of course, and some of them, well, none of them actually at all, are particularly remarkable in any way. They're all very repetitive, and it's funny. The criticisms of the video seem to be very, very uniform, but I want to look at these 3 comments because I want to point out something about these people's channels, okay? So here's the first one. It says, this post has literally 6 upvotes. You're just not very bright. Your video is also fundamentally based around logical fallacies with your use of the NPC meme, both in the comments and in the video itself. It's called a straw man. Actually, no, that's not true. What was in the video was a skit. I was not actually representing real people. I was representing the types of people who comment under my videos. And yes, it is exactly how you people act. I'm not strawmanning anything that cannot be perfectly represented in the comments from literally all of my videos about Contrapoints. But I'm going to move on. You aren't a rational or logical person, and this video demonstrates that very thoroughly. It's a bad video, and you are a bad content creator. Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Now, even if that was the case, it's funny that I have such high approval ratings on the dramatic majority of my videos. Like, almost all of my videos have over 90% approval rating. I would say over 90% of my videos have 90% or better in terms of the approval rating on them. I have a few that have 100% that have, thousands of views on them, and very few that have less than 75%, and only probably less than 10 that have a less than 50% approval rating. And surprise, surprise, it's pretty much, I would say that definitely the highest amount of negative feedback that I've gotten is under my Contrapoints videos. All of them. All of them are swarmed with people who say stuff like that. Very, very interesting. Now, From the comment, that seems a little bit suspect, but not entirely suspect by itself. But what is suspect is when you actually go look at the channel. Because, as you can see, this Samada, which, okay, that's not a real name. That sounds like a troll name that you would make on a throwaway account. When you go look at the actual channel, it's this totally un-PC, let's mock disabled people channel. There's videos that are uploaded which are obviously stolen from other channels, and it's this very strange thing. Now, when I'm looking at this, the type of trolls that I remember being like this were the people that trolled from the blood sports crowd. You know, the people who are big fans of Tonka Saw, and who, anytime Tonka Saw would tell a lie, they would go and repeat the lie over and over on Twitter and in YouTube comment sections. It's funny what happened with Tonka Saw. Everybody pretends that he was this horrible person and that they hate him and everything, but he was actually really, really popular amongst a bunch of these accounts, and to the point where normal people who were actually fairly decent people acted like they were cool with him because there was this big mass of people around him acting like he was cool. Now, granted, he was always very obviously lying if you actually paid attention to the type of things that he was saying. He wasn't funny, he wasn't talented, he was just annoying, you know? But if there's a whole bunch of people that are supposedly watching a channel, supposedly leaving positive comments or trash talking the people that he's trash talking, well, in YouTube land, that looks appealing to a lot of smaller channels because they can think, oh, maybe this guy's doing something right. If I act like him or I'm friends with him, then maybe I'll get more subscribers. So it's actually an effective strategy to just have a whole big swarm of numbers on YouTube. And I suspect, I mean, I haven't had official confirmation from an individual or anything that did this, but I have known drug addicts who engaged in some pretty shady behavior that was very, very, I would say about one molecule away from doing this type of thing, that there's definitely people out there who, and drug addicts in particular, who sit around being awful on the internet all day and getting money in certain different ways, often by coming up with lies about fundraiser-ish things and stuff like that. But I would really not be surprised if they were taking money to be veritable mercenaries on the internet. And so if you want to go look at this channel, this one that I'm showing right here, I feel like it's a great example of something like that, because this person's supposed to be a Contrapoints fan, I presume. Like, they came to my channel to leave comments about how I'm illogical for criticizing Contrapoints. Contrapoints is really, really PC, and Contrapoints supposedly cares about marginalized people so much. So why would this channel have a whole bunch of videos that are basically, obviously, designed to mock disabled people? And they have 76 subscribers, which is very strange, because why would anybody subscribe to this channel? Except if maybe this channel has a whole bunch of sock puppet accounts and they all subscribe to this channel to make it look more legitimate. That seems like something that might be likely, and considering there's a few more channels that are somewhat like this in this sub-comment thread alone. So here's another comment. So this username, Dodec84, that user also commented in the sub-comment section that I was looking at, but he or she left an individual comment, and it says, WTF man, you are a really bad listener. The part about race is not contradictory at all. She is just saying race might be arbitrary and a social construct. The prejudices and history tied to it still has an effect on our society. What is not to understand? Now, if you actually watch my video, I made my objection very clear. What I was saying is that the first half of Contrapoints' video was basically saying that there's no scientific basis for race, which isn't actually true. You could go by phenotype groupings and distinguish different races, because we're not talking about different species of humans, we're talking about different races. It will be like the difference between the animal, the slow loris, when there's actually different slow loris categories depending upon which Southeast Asian country they're from, such as, I don't know, Malaysia and Indonesia. There's actually different slow lorises, and they look slightly different, but they are all still the slow loris. Now, that is based around phenotype grouping. However, after Contrapoints goes to that trouble, Contrapoints goes and says that you should still use the racial categories that were invented that were arbitrary so that we can treat people fairly because they have been historically treated unfairly. Now, that's clearly a blatant contradiction, because if you're going to say there's only one race, the human race, then you should treat people basically the same. But Contra can't actually do that because Contra wants to advocate for affirmative action, because Contra is a communist. However, since Contrapoints also wants to debunk race realism, Contrapoints makes it look like they did that, but then also tries to say that, very, very briefly say, might I add, that you should actually still legally judge people by the color of their skin because that is what communism demands, which is a contradiction. If everybody is the same, maybe you should treat everybody the same, right? Now, I'm not going to say that there's never a situation in which you can be somewhat contradictory and counterintuitive and still be logical. However, the problem that I'm having with Contra's statement, and this is the problem that anybody should have, is that Contra doesn't give you other options. Contra is not actually trying to fairly explore either this notion of whether or not race is real, or whether or not we should implement affirmative action. Contra conducts their video as if both things need to just be accepted to be true, and advocates for one position, which is affirmative action, and advocates against a position, which is race realism, without giving any sort of nuance about either. And that is the problem. It's a self-contradiction where you are only allowed to see things with nuance if you come to the same conclusion, which I explain. Now, that critique of my video is probably the most common thing, and the trolls will just go on and on about it endlessly. Like, I decided to engage with another person just out of curiosity, and they were so obviously just trying to rope me into an endless discussion. It was so funny. The thing that they were doing was they would, anytime I would actually get into the specifics about either affirmative action or about genetics, they would say, well, I don't really know anything about genetics. Oh, I don't really know anything about affirmative action, but I want to keep talking about it. And they would just go on and on and on. It was actually kind of funny. So what you're dealing with is somebody who's saying, no, Contrapoints didn't contradict themselves. And then when you try to explain exactly how in more precise detail, they're saying, well, I don't understand what you're talking about. But Contrapoints is right, and I think that you're wrong. And it's like, are you sure you really think that? Or are you trying really hard to make me think that you really think that? I'm not so sure. And considering how common that exact same critique of my video was, it really seems like maybe they have some sort of, I don't know, Discord server or something dedicated to coming up with ways to defend Contrapoints and brainstorm things that are wrong with people who are criticizing Contrapoints or something like that, because it seems like they all have the same exact thing, and there was so much in my video, it's funny that they're all focusing on that, and a few other completely uniform things, right? But regardless, let's take a look at this Dodec 84. Nothing on the channel. No fake videos, not even a photo of themselves, just a banner photo that's some mountains. And yet, they have 26 subscribers. How? How is that the case? Now, there is a small possibility that this person went on live streams and a number of people liked them from the live streams. But judging by the fact that their screen name is such a throwaway thing, it's hard for me to believe they're actually going on live streams and talking to people. It seems more like this is a throwaway account. And one of the things I noticed, this is one of the things I definitely noticed when I was dealing with the blood sports trolls, is that on Twitter, it seemed like every month that the blood sports thing was going on, there'd be a new crop of sock puppet accounts that would come from the current month. They would all have about 25 followers on Twitter. So maybe 25, 26 is the magic number. They create about 25 fake, dummy accounts, and then they subscribe to all of the other ones from the other accounts to make it look like this is an actual real person with these fake ass throwaway screen names. That seems fairly likely to me. Now, I want to look at one more of these. This comment comes from a user named Corey MCK. And they say, so, you're saying that YouTube itself is now against you in a global conspiracy to embarrass you? Golly, give it a rest. Not everything is about you. In fact, most things aren't about you. And this video isn't even about you. So the fact that you take it as a personal, strategic, conspiring attack against you is pretty damn ridiculous. People dislike this video, comment, and your fallacious ad homs because they're trash. You might have put a lot of effort into it, but they're still trash. Your dislikes are a result of your actions. Facts are facts, America. Wait, what? P.S. Using someone else's shopped face to promote your video is effing disgusting, and you deserve to feel embarrassed. Okay. Geez. Yeah, really good job at convincing me that you are a real person. Now let's look at this person's account. Oh, what do you know? No videos at all, but 42 subscribers. I know people that have videos that don't even have 10 subscribers. Just saying. But that's not even the craziest thing that happened as a result of the fallout from last week's video. No. I actually got an email into my mrprinceofqueens@gmail.com account. And this has never happened to me before. I've never been emailed by a troll. But this person, who's literally writing me from a throwaway account that you can just go and sign up for to have a throwaway account for a second, sent me an email. And it's funny, it has a headline that was misleading. I didn't know what this would be about because I don't think that the headline, which says, "I told you I'd email you, C-word," I wouldn't have thought that that would be contain a very long, methodically thought out gaslighting criticism of my Contrapoints video. What I think that they were trying to do is trick me into opening it by writing a misleading title of this email. And I'm not really going to go through this video, but I'm going to share the text as I'm talking about it. I guess the best thing to say is that a lot of work was put into this email, and it's basically just the same type of, like, what you would expect from gaslighting. Like, people trying to be like, well, okay, yeah, Anita was maybe favored and Contrapoints is doing well, but you have no evidence for anything at all, and you're crazy. And for you to just think that it's just absurd, and your arguments are totally shallow and blah 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 blah. You're Prince of Queens, you're crazy. The last time anything like this happened to me was when I had a stalker, and I went through briefly the stalker that I had in the Contrapoints video. And it was this person that was a 15-year-old girl, or so she said. She certainly sounded like it when I had a voice call with her. and it sounded like she was crying, like she was terrified to be doing this. And she literally stalked me for, like, internet stalked me. She wasn't maybe trying to find out my address and showing up outside my house, but everything that you can do on the internet easily. Like, she was just, she created an entire Twitter account to tweet about me, and then she was in my comments literally every day, and she'd just go on and on and on, to the point where I was asking her, like, wait, you're 15, aren't you in school? It's during the daytime. And she'd be like, well, math class is boring. Like, she's seriously sitting there, and because her posts were long, they were like often a page long or so. So supposedly I'm supposed to believe that she's in math class with her phone under the desk, writing page long comments under my videos. It's kind of hard to believe. It kind of seems like she's lying to me about a few things. And one of the things that she was obsessed with saying was literally that she believed that I was mentally ill. And I don't really know why she thought that she believed that. She did admit that she had mental health issues, so maybe she was just projecting and that she was obsessed with me for some reason. But it was very, very odd, because she showed up as a direct result of my Contrapoints video where I questioned Contrapoints' transition. And this little crazy 15-year-old girl was so obsessed, and I had a voice call with her. And the thing that I wanted to determine from the voice call was why exactly she started stalking me, and what was the deal. And she of course would not answer my questions. Every straightforward question I asked, she would try to dodge or start attacking me or answer the question with a question. Like, it got to the point somehow in this conversation, which went on for over an hour, we were talking about TERFs, and I was saying that, you know, I don't agree with how TERFs act, and I think that they're horrible people, and I don't agree with their ideology because they are radical feminists. However, I do also think that TERFs, or any group of women, should have a right to form a female-only space. I think that anybody should be able to. I mean, that's why we have private events, to invite people that we want to be there as opposed to people that we don't want to be there. And I didn't necessarily say it in terms of the private event thing, but I was just like, yeah, I mean, I think that cisgender women deserve to have the right to have spaces to themselves. And the little ass girl, the crazy little girl, she was like, but why would they want that? And I was like, why aren't they allowed to? And she was like, but why do they want them? And it was like, okay, are you actually this insane? Or is someone leering over your shoulder telling you to be this insane? And I was like, okay, what about trans people? Do trans people have a right to have meetings and stuff for just trans people? And she was like, no, I think they should be open to everybody. And I was like, well, because I think that they should have a right. And she was like, well, why would they want that? And I was like, Jesus, I don't think you're actually this stupid. So finally, after being sidetracked in all of these weird discussions like that, I was finally like, no. I want to talk about when you started stalking me, because as far as I remember, it was when I made my Contrapoints video. Because, I mean, it was, you can look through the tweets from this person's account. The first thing they started tweeting about was me and Contrapoints, and how I was a jerk and I was wrong about everything because of my criticisms of Contrapoints. And so I brought that up, and then the kid hung up from the call and left, and then said it was their parents. And then refused to have a call again with me later to pick up where we left off, saying, no, I proved to you that I'm a real person, didn't I? And it's like, well, yeah, in the way that you're a real person, but you definitely didn't prove to me that you're not doing this occupationally. It was very suspicious. It really, really reeked of something else going on. Now, I don't have any evidence to state that this was a person that was actually hired by some sort of far leftist activist organization. I don't know. But, we should always remember that there are far leftist organizations that will employ 15-year-olds. I worked for one that was a telefundraising place in the late 90s, and it was a far leftist telefundraising thing, and it was very crooked. I learned about the corrupt business practices. So the idea that they're hiring young people to go around trolling the internet and write these absurd emails, it's not really very far-fetched, especially if you consider the type of comments that I get. And it would not be very far-fetched if they were doing this as a way to go around propping up Contrapoints, liking all their videos, having them recommend their videos everywhere, downvoting anything critical, getting in pointless arguments. That is really, really what it seems like. And if you were trying to convince me that this wasn't the case by spamming and writing me crazy emails, you certainly did the exact opposite. I mean, I will admit that I am not saying for 100% certain that this is happening because I don't have any hard evidence. However, considering the fact that the state can literally pay media organizations to peddle propaganda, then it's certainly not illegal for little paid political trolls to be trolling the internet. And we do know that it actually happened during the 2016 election for an absolute fact, so why would it not be happening now? I know that there are people that are stupid enough or uneducated enough to actually enjoy Contrapoints, and there's plenty of people who actively want to like things that are like that, even though they didn't even really pay attention to the videos because they're boring and they're very indirect about what they're actually saying. But if anybody's actually that gullible, then they're very likely going to be influenced by all of the trolls singing their praises. They're going to think, oh, wow, this must be the cool thing because all these accounts like it. And so, you can just get the ball rolling and then it can grow from there. Makes perfect sense, right? Okay, trolls, troll away.